Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Marvel Plus, the podcast devoted to all things MCU. My name is Brett Scott. I am your host, and this, my friends, is the show. And it's a very special episode. We don't often get to do these, especially this year. We only get to do it once, reviewing a brand new MCU film that is still in the theaters. And to help me out with that today, I've got one of the only people I know who have seen it several times already, my good friend, Mick Thomas. How are you, Mick?
All right, man. How are you doing? You well?
Doing very well, man. Especially after seeing this movie, like there's some hope building up inside of me again.
Yeah, it's definitely we all needed that kind of thing because you know what it's too. It's you can always stop going to the movies, right? You can just go, all right, I'm good. But when you've gone to since Iron Man, Hulk, all the way up, and you haven't missed one. And it's still, it's like, when do you, like, you're just invested into it now, you know what I mean? And you want to support and keep that going and see where the journey goes. And you want them to create great content and hopefully pick up from where they've dropped the ball. And they did it with this one for sure.
Yeah. So now, if people don't know, you've been on the show before. We met, I actually found you doing an MCU review of your own at one point when during the pandemic you decided to pick up the mic and do Marvel reviews, but that is not your what do we profession, right? What is your profession? So Mick Thomas is a comedian. Mick Thomas, I think we talked about that a little bit in the last episode, kind of like the ins and outs of being up on stage.
We did a lot of behind the scenes stuff, yeah.
Yeah. But what have you been up to lately? You've been out on the road? What's going on with your comedy?
I've been on the road a lot of festivals this summer. I'm back in Minnesota next week. I'm in Myrtle Beach the 26th all the way through the 1st. So I'm doing a lot of road work. I'm doing a lot of stuff with Fox News, which is fun. Fox News Saturday night, which a lot of people, you know, I lose a bunch of followers when I tell them I do Fox News, but it's on a political channel, but the show itself is not political. And people are like, I'm not following you if you're a Fox guy. And I'm like, listen, they're signing a check. I'm not gonna. I'm not gonna walk. Yeah. But I don't. When it goes into politics, I don't. I mean, I'll bring it up on my own podcast, you know, where I try to find some humor in it, but I don't use it as a soapbox. You know what I mean? I don't use any of it as a soapbox. But yeah, I'm doing some stuff on Fox News, which is a lot of fun. But yeah, I'm out and about.
Now that's I mean, I don't think I'd be picky when it comes to doing, you know, national news networks. I think if I'm getting my name out there on any national news, that's a good thing.
Right. Yeah, and they're a good group of guys over there, guys and gals.
Well, one thing I've noticed too is you mentioned, like you said, you go into politics a little bit on your podcast and kind of dive into, you know, it's a place for you to vent and talk shit and then do what you do, right? Like you're just spewing your thoughts of the last week or so.
Yeah,
and,
you know what it does? It stops me from literally going on to somebody's comments and being, because you can't interpret my tone of voice. You can't, because I've been on Facebook a few times, especially, and I put my opinion in there, let it be for a joke reason only, and get kicked off for 30 days. I'm like, all right, whatever. But it's like, if something was like Marvel related that I can't even give a thumbs up to it. Because like, no, you're banned for 30 days. You can't interact with anybody here. So when I go to the podcast, it's like I just rant for 20 minutes. And if politics happen to be the topic, then so be it, you know?
Yeah. Well, and what I've noticed is too, it's like, if people do listen to your podcast, they don't necessarily think that that's what you're going to do on stage. Because, I mean, you have stuff you've written, you have jokes you've worked on. You know, it's like you're not up there doing a political soapbox rant on stage. Like you go up there and it's actually, I didn't hear much politics at all when I came to see you live.
I don't do any politics deliberately because I have a bunch of friends who also it's not timely, right? And I work a lot on my material, and sometimes it can take me 6 months to get a joke really ready. And I've only got one joke, and I talk about the history of presidents, and I talk about President Jackson, who once shot and killed a man in a duel because someone called his wife fat. And the joke was, and it's on my Instagram, you can see it on there. But I basically talk about like just before Biden dropped out, and I said, wouldn't it be funny if these two guys were in a duel? And I go, but we know Trump would turn and shoot on two, and we know Biden would have missed because he's fallen over from the weight of the gun. And I kind of made fun of both of them, because I don't like to pick a side especially on stage, whatever my personal politics are. You don't want to go on stage because politics now are so. I used to be like, oh, that is my guy. You got us. You're right. Now it's like literally, I'm offended. I'm upset. I'm going to walk out of here. And I genuinely don't want anybody feeling upset at one of my shows. I really don't. Like, no matter how, I don't want to be edgy. I don't want to be the guy that has, I just want people to laugh and have a good time. I don't want anyone feeling uncomfortable. So I keep it off the stage. And
you're definitely a testament to that. You don't have to be edgy to be funny either. Like, I think it's probably more difficult to be genuinely funny without trying to be edgy. Like I bet I'm imagining that's a harder path to go rather than just the topic of the day, pick one side or the other type thing to gain a following. Like,
sometimes the topic of the day writes itself. Like you can almost see the punchline coming. Do you know what I mean? Like if you know what the punchline is going to be when it comes to politics. And the reason why, because 100 other guys have said it, and that's why I just try to stay away from it. And I talk about my own life, my own experiences, my own opinions. That's kind of going to last a while. But politics changes so fast that there's no point in investing 2 weeks, 2 months on getting a joke just right. And then for all of a sudden, like I said, it took me, I think, 2 months, 3 months to get that Biden joke right, Biden and Trump joke with the duel right. And I knew now Biden dropped out. I mean, do I want to be that guy that still does a joke that's not really relevant because Biden isn't in it anymore? So, I focus more on the stuff that I can kind of, make it last a year, maybe two, to a brand new audience that hasn't seen me. But a returning audience, you want to do new stuff. But if I get in front of an audience that hasn't seen me ever, then at least that joke that I've been working on for a while, I can still do it. It's still relevant.
Yeah. Well, so are you working on like a new hour of material right now? Is that where the process you're in right now?
Yeah, I'm in a new, and it's weird. It's not the best experience. It's for me, it is. I do love it, but when you go on stage, and on the weekends, you kind of have to give them the hits, right? Because it's a big night. You want to deliver every time. But when I go to the city now, and I'm doing a 20-minute spot during the week. Some jokes you have, like, that's a 10. What I mean by 10, like, I'm happy with the response the audience gave. And the joke to the public might not be considered a 10, right? You go, well, George Carlin is a 10. How dare you say you're a 10? But to me, where the laughter is, that's a 10. A new joke might be a 6. But I want to make that 6 into a 10. And most of my jokes start as 6s, 7s, 5s. So right now, I got a whole chunk of 6s. So, like, your ego is kind of a little... deflated, but that's all part of it, So I'm on stage with a bunch of 6s, but when I go to Minnesota next weekend, you'll get the A stuff. When I go to Myrtle Beach on the 26th to the 1st of September, you'll get the A stuff. But when I'm working in the city and stuff, our local clubs around here, I'm on 6s right now. I'm trying to make them 10s.
Do you start over every year? I've heard a lot of comedians do that. Do you kind of dump all the old material, or do you keep some and keep it with you, or do you?
I keep it. I do the jokes that make me happy, that I have a good time. But if I do a show, like for example, I'll do a show and it happens like seniors. I might get hired to do a show, a bunch of seniors. I know what jokes work for them. And I haven't, now this new material might not be appropriate for an older person. A senior might not, no, I don't like that joke at all. Then I'll go back into my old bag of tricks and I'll dust them off because they've never seen it before. But when I'm out on the road, I do what I am enjoying doing. And if I'm enjoying it, I'm assuming the audience are going to have a good time with it too.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. I love getting a little insight into that world. But
yeah, it's fun. It's a fun journey.
So also, I just want to say too, I enjoy both aspects. I love your podcast. I love the ranting. Last week you were on fire. I just got to say, last week you were amped on the last episode, and I really enjoyed it. But then I also enjoy watching your comedy. online, and then also, live in person when I got to see it. I hope I get to see you again next time you come around.
I really hope. You know what's funny, man? That when I take away from that gig that you came to, the only thing, and this is no disrespect to anybody else that was there, the only thing that bothers me of how sick I was, and I was like, I wish I got to make it up to him and give him a better show where I'm alert, I'm awake, and even that picture of you and I, like, I'm just because I hadn't eaten in 5 days, and I looked emaciated because I hadn't eaten in 5 days. Really, realistically, whatever I ate, it came out both ends, and it just wasn't staying down or else I didn't even have an appetite. And I think that night was the first time I ate something at the mall there, one of the burger joints upstairs. And that was the first time I'd eaten really in 5 days. And I was really kind of holding on. So I definitely want a chance to redeem myself, when you swing by.
Yeah, no. I mean, it was still a great show. You and Sean Finnerty both had a great show. My buddy who came, he had never seen really anything from either of you, and he really enjoyed himself. So it must not have been that bad. Yeah.
Oh, good.
Yeah. So we're here today to talk about something that gives me hope, something that I think gives you hope, as you've seen it twice now in the theater, right? We're talking about Deadpool and Wolverine, something that everyone's been looking forward to all year. It's going to make all the money. It's already making all the money. I know you were already excited about the film, but generally, how are you feeling about like the MCU and what this could do for it or not do for it going into the film?
I mean, I think there's a few movies that are in the can, right? That they're finding issues with releasing them. I don't know why they keep putting it back, and I don't know for what reason they do. Blade, for some reason, they can't give it a release date yet. I don't see one. I mean, I could be wrong by the time this comes out. And that's why I kind of liked. You're going with spoilers on this, right?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Good. So the fact that Blade was in it with Wesley Snipes was a great way to kind of like, hey, listen, Blade is a cool character. For those of you who've never seen it, we're trying to get Blade off the ground. And I think because Blade was Fox, there are some movies that still have to come out that were attached to Fox, like Venom 3. And I hope Venom 3 is going to be a lot better than the second one. The trailer doesn't make it look like it's good, being honest with you. It doesn't, the story hasn't been told in the trailer. And I think if you can't tell the story in the trailer, then you're in trouble. But I still love Tom Hardy. Kraven the Hunter looks fantastic. I don't know why they're struggling with getting that out. I know it has a date now.
I don't know.
Yeah, I think it does have a date. But I really am hopeful now that the fact that they got rid of all their legal ties and, hopefully they put the Spider-Man issue with, we're going to give you, what's his name?
Tom Holland
on loan, you know what I mean, that kind of way. But it's like, so, but I really do, especially with Secret Wars coming on, especially with Tony Stark coming in as Dr. Doom. I know it's Robert Downey Jr., but in the one version of, there is a variant of where where Tony Stark becomes Dr. Doom. And I think, I'm very, very hopeful about what they have and the storyline that they have, because it's an original story. It really is.
Yeah. How do you feel about that? About the announcement that RDJ is coming back to now play Doom? Like, I was a little confused by it because I don't know how to feel. I don't know if like does him now coming back take a little bit away from that awesome ending that we got for the character, just to bring that actor back a couple years later, or is it going to work? Is it going to work because it's a variant, or will they somehow tie it to the Tony Stark? Not the one that we knew, but some other version of Tony Stark, like you said. I don't know. I'm not sure how to feel about it.
Well, the thing about that one is it's almost like in pro wrestling, right? When a wrestler has his retirement match, like someone like Ric Flair had this big retirement match, and Ric Flair, like him or not, was labeled as one of the, I'm saying label, so your opinion might be he's not the greatest to me, but he was labeled as one of the goats of wrestling. And he had his farewell match at WrestleMania 24. I was actually at that one, and it was a beautiful match, and it was done, and tears were shed, and it was a story well told in the ring and how it was over. And then he goes back up and he packs his shit, and he wrestles for a smaller company, which kind of shits on his retirement. So I kind of like, so you could look at it like that way. Well, like, you kind of went out as one of the greatest exits in movie history. But the thing about that too is, like, I think they can still honor him with, because it's not him, it's a different variant. It's still, because if you've read the Secret Wars, which is a phenomenal series, like, it's probably one of the best reads ever. Are you talking
original Secret Wars from the 80s or Secret Wars like 2015 Secret Wars? Because
both of them, because they do kind of cover it. They do kind of cover that there was a variant, you know, of Tony Stark being Iron Man. You know, and then you have the different one from the Illuminati, you know, which we thought we were going to see in Doctor Strange.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I like the idea, because what that does is Robert Downey Jr. coming back allows, because in the comic they do go get the original Captain America back. You know, they do go get the original Iron Man back after he died. You know, so I think it has the opportunity to bring back in any single person from any walk of life. Now that all the legal bullcrap is over, you're talking like anyone, like from a Punisher, from, you know, back to Blade, back to, like, you know, Gambit, how funny Gambit was.
Dude, I hope we get to see Dolph Lundgren's Punisher. That's what I want to see.
You're going way back. That was you know, and it's like, but there's so many different, you know, Daredevil again, or there's just so many different. People just want to see the costumes walk out of something, you know, walk out of a lineup. Like, you know, like, you cannot recreate, I don't think you can, that feeling you got from Endgame, but you came close in Deadpool, right? You came very close in Deadpool. Like, I mean, the whole theater, I'm very anti-talking in movie theaters. And like, I it's one of my pet peeves. And I didn't care, man. People lost their crap during Deadpool, and it was warranted. So I think if you can, with the Secret Wars, you can bring people back. You can just have like a Daredevil walkout. You can have like just so many, and introduce so many new characters that never got their shot. I'm excited about it. And Tony Stark, the fact that Robert Downey Jr. is playing Doctor. I know you don't like it. You don't seem to like it at all.
I don't. It's not that I don't like it. I'm just unsure how, you know, how it'll play out. I'm a little worried about how it'll play out. But, you know, that was one other thing I wanted to ask you too, was what was the theater experience like at Deadpool? Because it sounds like it was lively, and no pun intended. But there was wasn't there? I mean, was the theater full?
Yes.
That's awesome.
I bought my tickets the day they came out. And of course I couldn't go see it on the Thursday because I had, you know, all my wife's like, oh, I can't make it that day, and my kids were like, I can't, because I used to go all by myself. Nobody was interested, and this was my thing. I would do. I would leave and I would go by myself. How was the movie? Yeah, you wouldn't like it. And then of course it blew up to being what it was, and then you know my wife fell in love with Thor, and she wanted to see him more, and then the kids like Spider-Man, and it's like, so now they're all in, and it's like I had to find a schedule that suited me, and I was offline. I was terrified of spoilers. Same.
Same.
You know,
Absolutely.
I wasn't on any social media. But the theater was packed. And it was great. And that was, you know, a few days in. And it's like, even the other day when I went the second time, I think I got the last 4 tickets again. Because I took 2 of my kids and a friend of theirs. And, you know, it was packed again. And I'm looking to go again next Tuesday just for shits and giggles. And I think it's going to be, I'm already looking at the tickets and they're already kind of moving. So.
Dude, that's awesome. You know, same thing for me here. The theater was the fullest I've seen it in years. I mean, since pre-COVID for sure. And that just the buzz in there was like, like it felt like going to Infinity War or Endgame. Like that's what it felt like in the theater again. And it was like, okay, I think we got something special here. If this many people will still show up now, like there's still hope that they can kind of turn this thing around, you know?
Right. 100%. I definitely think they can. That they have all the people now. They have all. Sorry, my dog's going crazy over there. They have all the people. They they have everybody for it, and I don't see why they can't turn that around and to do exactly what they said they're going to do. You know, which I think is to save it.
So you said your wife is into Thor. My wife just recently tells me, because she never goes either. She doesn't care about these movies. She's seen maybe 2 or 3 that I've dragged her to. I convince her, like, well, you got to see Black Panther because it's a big deal, you know. And then I was like, oh, you got to see. Unfortunately, you got to see Captain Marvel because it's the Marvel, equivalent of Wonder Woman, and our daughter should go see it. So, like, I convinced them in that way. But this one, she had no interest in seeing. But then she's seeing all the buzz now. And then I put on Days of Future Past the other day. And you remember...
What a very underrated movie, right?
Oh, it's so good. It's so damn good.
I would put it up there almost as good as Endgame. And people think I'm crazy for saying that. It's
so good. And just with the way they do the time travel and everything and that as well, it's like it's very comparable, you know?
Right.
But my wife, I'm just now finding out that my wife has a crush on Hugh Jackman. It's like, but you know, in that movie, who doesn't? That guy, like, he's shirtless in the beginning. What is he in that scene? He's probably near 50 years old, like 50 years old, shredded. I mean, the best he had ever looked, and he was 15 years into the character. So it was
you don't want to be sitting there eating your popcorn and all of a sudden, like even go back to Thor, like in the last one, and he, you know, that scene where he gets tied up by Zeus and he flicks his clothes off, and you're just eating a bucket of popcorn like a sow, and you just you know what the heck, just forget that. Just throw the bucket on the ground. You're just ashamed of yourself. But I that movie you're talking about, Hugh Jackman, I saw him do an interview and he said he dehydrated himself for 2.5 days. 3 days. He
looked crazy.
By the way, 3 days you died, and he dehydrated for 2.5 days for that movie.
Yeah, he's great, man, and that's so. Now I'm gonna get to go see it again this weekend because my wife rediscovered her love for Hugh Jackman when we were watching Days of Future Past. So she's like, I think I want to see it. She's like, is he shirtless in it? I'm like, yeah, for a minute, yeah, he is a little bit at the end.
A bit unnecessary, if you ask me. He came out again. I was like, that's not right. We were doing so well.
Yeah. You know what I think? I think the main reason they did it, and I think it was kind of definitely one of those little Easter eggs for the fans, but in the cartoon, and probably in the comics as well, honestly, I can't picture it, but at least in the cartoon, it was common for Wolverine to end up shirtless but still have his mask on, which was ridiculous. Right. They did that. Yeah, they did that in this movie. He's shirtless, he's still got his mask on. So I thought that was pretty funny. But
it's like Donald Duck wearing a top. Donald Duck would have a shirt on but no bottoms. Sam and Winnie the Pooh, like, what are we doing?
Yes. Yeah. So yeah, let's kind of jump into it. We've been jabbering here for like 20 minutes, and we haven't got really into the movie. So starting out, you know, he gives you the recap at the beginning, kind of like, well, it gives you a little really quick recap, and I don't think it would suffice for someone who hasn't seen the first 2 films, but since they're not super relevant in this one, he just kind of runs through. I got this deadly cancer. I ended up with all these powers, and then my girlfriend got killed, and then I went back in time, and blah blah blah. He just catches you up real quick.
Right.
And but the beginning opening scene is him walking up to something very familiar to anyone who's seen Logan. He's walking through the woods up to Logan's grave where he'd been buried.
He's actually sitting down at the tree that he was killed at.
Oh yes. You know, that's right.
That's pretty cool. Like, he's on the tree that Wolverine died on.
Yes. What's really funny is I heard, I think it was like a year, maybe 2 years ago, when they first announced that they were gonna that Hugh Jackman was coming on board, and Ryan made it a point to like ease fans' fears of like, we're not going to do anything to like besmirch the name of Logan. We're not going to ruin what you've seen before. So this opening scene was just like,
we're not going to desecrate his grave.
Yeah. Which is exactly what they did, right? Exactly what they did. He explains to us, he kind of then goes back and gives us a like, why is he here at Logan's grave? And he tells us about, you know, he was kind of lost. He was a couple years ago, six years beforehand, went to try to join the Avengers. They didn't want him. Basically, realizing he's kind of useless and the world doesn't need him. And but then at his birthday party, he gets scooped up by the TVA, which is our first kind of glimpse of MCU world here. And they inform him that, you know, your universe is going to come to an end, but not quick enough for us. We're just going to go ahead, and we find out later, but might as well talk about it now that this guy, what's his name?
I can't remember now either.
I want to call him Polygamist. That's not his name. That's not his name.
Oh yeah, no, you're not far off it though.
Yeah. So anyway, this TVA agent, who's the head of a department, he tells him like, hey, you know, we're going to get rid of this. And we realize later though that this is like a rogue section of the TVA. This is not like the company proper. This is some guy going off on his own. He's deciding we're not going to wait for it to die on its own. We're just going to snuff it out right now. And the reason why it's dying is because it lost its Wolverine. Wolverine is this anchor being, as they call them. Every universe has an anchor being that their whole universe kind of depends on. And if they lose it, that world comes to an end. So I'm still a little confused because Logan took place at a different time. Like the movie Logan took place, I think, in 2029, maybe. And so it doesn't actually line up perfectly with this movie that, you know, but I'll forgive it because of how great this scene was. They find out because their Wolverine is dead, they're gonna get rid of it. So he decides like, I'll just go get another one. I'll just go get another Wolverine. And correct me if I'm wrong, because you've seen it twice. He goes to this grave first, right? Before he goes to the grave and digs him up first before he goes searching for a different Wolverine,
because
right?
He thinks that he regenerates and he's just buried under the ground.
Right. He's like, you've got to be alive. People don't understand how the healing factor works, right? He digs him up, and what is in there? A decrepit adamantium skeleton, still a little bit of hair on it. It was hilarious.
It was
hilarious.
And then the TVA showed up. And then he steals the watch or whatever they want to call it, and then that's where he goes back. That's where he goes. But it was one of the leaving it aside, man. It is one of the funniest movies ever. It's not just funny, and it's like this one big inside joke, and everybody likes to be on an inside joke, right? And it was that's what the whole movie was. Just it was hilarious from start to finish, with amazing. And I love old kung fu. I've always grown up on fight scenes, and it had some of the greatest fight scenes. Just the choreography was phenomenal in this movie. Yeah,
I feel like that's something that the MCU struggled with as of late, the last couple years, is their fight choreography. And I'm not exactly sure why, but throughout the series and even the movies that they've put out, it didn't seem, you know, it looked really fake. It didn't look as visceral as like a real fight would. This was awesome though. And I think the fact that they, thank God they let Sean Levy and Ryan Reynolds kind of have so much creative control here, because I mean that's the smartest thing Disney's done in a long time, is just let them do their thing and just kind of step back, because they knew what fans wanted, you know, and they gave it to us. Like the first ever R-rated Disney film was a complete success, man. They blew it out of the water.
And people are saying, how do you get
that
on Disney? Well, if you go to my Disney Plus now, I got to put in a password, like a code to get into it. And that's how you know, and I listen, if your kids end up seeing it, that's on you. That's just bad parenting.
Yeah. I was actually thinking, I was like, there's not a whole lot of this movie that my kids couldn't see. Some of the other ones, like there's some more raunchy, like sexual stuff that I wouldn't really want them to see. But I think any of the jokes that are in this movie would probably be over their heads a little bit, like the pegging at the beginning and stuff like that. But is there a better opening sequence to a movie than him fighting these TVA agents with Wolverine's skeleton and him and dancing to NSYNC's Bye Bye Bye, like choreographed?
I'm walking around my house, you know,
just
humming that song. You know what I mean? And it's like, you know what they say, if you get a song stuck in your head, you should just go listen to it and that'll get rid of it. And I haven't done that yet since the movie. So maybe I should go back and just put it on YouTube and but that song is stuck in my head. And I think they'll put NSYNC back on the map, if I'm being honest with you. Like if they should be definitely thankful for that movie. For that opening scene, it's phenomenal. It's a phenomenal opening scene.
Yeah. Oh, and it was a long opening sequence. You know, it's like each of the Deadpool films has their opening sequence, and they're all great. But that one, I feel like that was just the pinnacle. That was so good, so good. So he finds out, you know, there's no Logan to bring back. So he's like, hey, why don't I use this device, go into some different timelines, and go find a different Wolverine? We'll just replace him. We'll just bring a new one in, right? All of us knowing like that, I don't think that's how it works. I don't think, you know, you just bring in any other version. But he goes in, and this is maybe my favorite part of the entire film, is when he is timeline hopping, searching for another Wolverine.
Yeah, that was the first moment where they really went for the Wolverine fans. Like the real fans, you know, I had to lean in and tell my son, that's from. Until it came, and I even liked the Henry Cavill part, because the rumors of Henry Cavill being Wolverine is like, you know what, they weren't wrong. He was Wolverine for a second. That's something I think this movie did really well too. Is like with the Gambit thing, like that movie never got to happen. We were promised this Channing Tatum Gambit film forever. Channing Tatum really wanted to do it. You know, he's hoping he can do what Ryan Reynolds did with Deadpool. He's like, you know, if I just cling to this and I keep talking about it and I keep, you know, it'll happen. And it never happened. But how cool is it that they got to make that happen? Not only for him, but for all the fans who have wanted to see it. Yeah, and even for him, like, was so clever. Like, I don't think a lot of people picked up on it. But when they're all talking about getting sent there, right? When they got sent to the what was the place called? The unknown place where they're forgotten. He said, I think I was born here, which means his world never existed. You know, so he never had a world to come from because he never existed. And that's why that one quick line is like, I think I was born here. Yeah. And it was just so quick, and, you know, and it was great. It was great. And the fact that they kind of almost showed, I think, they almost defended the studio by showing how bad he was with a French accent, right?
Yes.
And how you couldn't understand him. And they were like, oh, maybe this wouldn't have actually worked. You know what I mean? Maybe this movie would have been terrible. And I think, I think that was a way, like, to almost defend the studio, to go, see, this is why you never had, because, like, unless you make it a comedy with that voice and that kind of stuff, and I don't think anybody really wanted to see, because Gambit, I don't know, Gambit could go both ways, a comedy or, because Gambit, as we talked about, we reviewed one of the X-Men cartoons, one of the X-Men episodes. Yeah. He's a cool character, man. And they were either going to make him really cool or funny. And I think if they had tried made him cool, they would not have been able to pull that off. And you could have had a She-Hulk incident all over again.
Yeah. I think so this movie did that so well too, like to your point. Like more than breaking the fourth wall, like it was like beyond that, because it was like not only making fun of the MCU and the multiverse saga, and but also then kind of poking fun like within our world of like that Gambit movie that never happened. It probably would have been terrible because, you know, he would have sounded like the making fun of all of that. It's so great, man. I think that I think actually what they did with Gambit in this with Channing Tatum was probably the best thing they could have done with him, which is they made him you know, comedic. They made it funny that you couldn't understand him and all this, and I think I was born here line. But they also made him a badass for a minute. Like when they have the fight later on, and he's dishing cards out, like that was awesome.
Yeah, that fight really captured what the comic book guy is like with this, you know, how he threw those cards out, and really, they did it. Even with Elektra too, because her movie sucked by herself.
Yeah,
and again, they made her into a badass, and they kind of she got a great chance to say goodbye. You know, I love the line about Daredevil, obviously played by Ben Affleck, her former husband. You know, they talk about him being dead, and it was fun. It was just funny, man. Like, so that whole, I was waiting for. I'll be honest with you, it was not that I was disappointed because I don't want to be one of those people. Because you know it is. I can't believe they didn't. Well, it's you go make a movie then. Like it's not the movie is in your fantasy, right? Yeah. But I honestly thought there was going to be a Spider-Man in there somewhere. Because I don't know if you saw the footage of when Wolverine was fighting Deadpool. It mirrors the fight scene that Flash had against Peter Parker in the very first Spider-Man with Tobey Maguire. The exact same the exact same fight sequence, right? And so you had that. Yeah. And then you had, like, of course, in the trailer, like Deadpool is like he's doing the spider. Like, so I thought, okay, they have to bring him in. Yeah. And they didn't. I thought one of the Spider-Men would have been good in there.
Yeah, and I've heard too that both the Hugh and Ryan have both said they really want to make a movie with Tom Holland Spider-Man. Like they want to act him. So, you know, maybe we'll get to see it someday. Maybe I'm guessing Secret Wars. We might get to see that, and if they do that, I'm sure they'll make a moment happen with those three. So, backing up a little bit though, I want to go into a little bit of the different Wolverine variants that they showed in this, which was, like I said, probably my favorite thing. I don't know if it was the first one. I think might have been the first or second one, but it doesn't matter. Whatever order it was in, we got comic book accurate Wolverine, which is not only poking fun at the idea, it's like poking fun at all the fans who say, no, this is not right. We need just a comic book accurate Wolverine. And I've always in my head gone, yeah, maybe he should be a little smaller. Like get a guy that's 5'7", 5'8". But if you get a comic accurate Wolverine, no one's going to take it seriously. And they brought out this guy. It was Hugh Jackman's face kind of superimposed on this little body. And that guy had to be even shorter than 5'3", which is Wolverine's 5'3". And he was jacked. Dude, he jumped down off of the stool, which was hilarious because you didn't see it till they zoomed out. They were zoomed in on his face at first, and then he turns around, hops down off the bar stool. Oh my God. The theater lost it at comic accurate Wolverine.
All of them, there was a bunch of, all of them were comic accurate. Like the one where the original suit where the Hulk shows up for a split second.
Yes. And they do that. They do that cover, that Hulk cover with the claws, and you see, it's a Todd McFarlane cover. He did that issue of
that's right.
Hulk.
And I like the way Deadpool was speaking to the Hulk just like Loki did before the Hulk grabbed his feet and smashed him. And then Deadpool just turned like, listen, smack.
Yeah.
And then they had Logan,
it was,
they had the crucified Logan and the one with the big hair and the Japanese one with the cards. They had it all, man. It was great.
Yeah. I think honestly my favorite one was they did the Age of Apocalypse big hair one-handed Wolverine. I love that. It's one of my favorite comic book storylines. So it was so cool to see. It felt like I was being seen there because there's a lot. I mean, who would think you would ever see such a like a kind of an unknown or uncelebrated character, like version of a character like that? Like that was really cool. All those other Wolverines were kind of like real Wolverines that we've seen in the comics before. They're just different. Like, oh, he's wearing a different suit in this one. He's but to see that alternate reality one, which actually comes from a comic that was about an alternate reality. It was really cool to see that. Yeah. So,
and Old Man Logan too was great. That was one of my favorite stories in the comic books. A lot of people don't like that one. I thought it was just it's like a Western. And I love that. It's like it's just all Western and it's done really good. The artwork is phenomenal. And it was really cool.
Yeah.
I think that was my favorite, actually. I turned to my son like, "Oh man, Logan."
It's really good. Right. You're like, well, haven't you seen Logan? Like Logan.
Yeah. I was like, what did I teach you in the schools over here? It's ridiculous. You don't know him.
Yeah. Right. So what do we get? We get he finally finds a Logan that he thinks is perfect, right? Like, yeah, this one will do. And he's just a down on his luck drunkard who has failed his universe, right? Like he's the worst Wolverine. That's what they call him over and over again. I love that they fight several times, brutally, like hashing it out several times throughout the film.
So good.
They do the stand up, fight each other fight. And then they do the in the minivan fight, which was crazy. That entire fight took place in a Honda Odyssey.
Right.
Like, can you imagine being...
And it went from daytime to nighttime. Like, that's how long the fight dragged out.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like, it was just...
Yes. I can imagine being Honda and being like, yeah, we need to get some product placement in here. And then having them dog your Honda Odyssey so much. But I'm sure it... I'm sure it was worth the money for them. I'm sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Of course.
I mean, it's one of the most kind of memorable things about the movie is that damn Honda Odyssey. So they did that right. They end up. He drags him back to the TVA. They shoot them down to what's it called now? The end of time. Is that where they send them?
I can't remember the name of the place
Void.
where they send them to. The Void. That was it. Yes, the Void.
Yeah. So they send them down to the Void. And while they're down there, fantastic misdirect when they run into this like freedom fighter that you hear his voice and it's clearly Chris Evans, right? It's clearly Chris Evans' voice, and you're like, oh shit, Captain America's in this, and the way they show his sleeve, it looks like the Captain America suit. Like it's the blue with a little bit of red kind of peering through. Anyway, I love the misdirect because then when it turns out to be that he is Johnny Storm and he says flame on instead of Avengers Assemble, that was another theater eruption.
You know what's funny though is I knew it right away. Once I realized it was Chris Evans, I was like in my head going like, this is great. And then when he jumped the superhero landing, and it was like, you know what? They're making it too comical. Like I say that with no arrogance, but it's just like, I something about it, like that's Johnny Storm. I knew exactly because because my eyes are darting around to see what else was in the background, what had fallen to the void. That was, Thor's helmet was there. I don't know if you saw that, like Thor's helmet was there and things like that, like stuff that, and I just kind of had an idea it was him. And still not disappointed. It was hilarious. No, it was awesome. I think, that was better than a Captain America reveal, I think. Especially using an actor like that has been in both Fox and Marvel Studios, Disney. It's perfect. Like that's a perfect way to do it. And I think that I think if audiences really thought about it, they would probably all have saw it coming, because this is kind of like bringing back all the Fox forgotten heroes. Like that's what's happening in this movie. All these different Fox characters are coming back. You're not seeing a bunch of MCU characters. You're seeing old Fox characters show up. So we meet him, and then we get to meet the main big bad of the film, Cassandra Nova, which is Charles Xavier's sister, maybe equally as powerful as him. Very scary villain. What did you think of them going with her for the villain? Because I didn't really see that coming originally. Like before I saw the trailers and stuff, I would have said, oh, they should get Cassandra Nova. That would be a good villain. She looked like Cassandra Nova looked to me like the type of villain that was too big for these two guys. Like she looked like a villain that was big and like where the X-Men would have to get together, or the Avengers. She had that much power. And I thought like I don't know how they're going to make that work because of the minute powers that, you know, I mean, what do Wolverine and Deadpool have? I mean, they know how to fight, but they don't have super strength. They don't have super speed. I mean, they're very well trained, but apart from the fact that they can re-heal, but I think they did that really well about how they capture with Juggernaut's helmet and that kind of stuff. And I think it was good. Like her arrogance kind of is what really defeated her. You know, like it was her arrogance. Like, well, I could destroy you guys like this. And she gave them no credit. I thought they were very smart about writing her in, because sometimes to me, and it's one of the reasons why I know obviously it's DC, but like one of the reasons I never really was a Superman fan, because for years upon years, you never had a villain that was big enough for Superman. You know, he was just too big. So this one here was kind of like the same. It was like she was too big of a villain for these two, but they were able to. It was written very well on how they got past her. I like, you know, it was done very well.
Yeah, and I think kind of relegating her to the void and having her stuck in there kind of helped like make her character seem a little smaller.
Right.
But I mean, eventually she does get out for a short period. But I do think that having them face off with her and figure out how to defeat her within the void, I think it kind of helped it. That it weren't like on Earth where they had to worry about her destroying cities and blah, blah, blah. Like it was a much smaller scale conflict. So I think it worked really.
It's like
really...
fighting a genie in the lamp. You know, it wasn't like the genie.
Right. Yes.
It was like they fought the genie in the lamp.
Right. Yeah. So they meet Cassandra Nova. She decides not to kill them, but just kind of like tosses them out. They end up going and finding a band of like rebels, right? But who kind of think that they have really no chance against Cassandra Nova. It's not like they're fighting to survive more so than fighting to defeat Cassandra Nova. And that's when we get to see them all walk in. They all get their own entrance, which I thought was fantastic. You got Wesley Snipes back as Blade, looking good as ever. Like he's looked so cool still. Like he could still play this character, man. He could play this character for a couple of movies. I'm convinced of it.
I agree.
Absolutely, man. Like, and I also thought it was cool.
You know, they brought Michael Douglas back to make him look young. You know what I mean? I don't see.
There you go. Yeah. Yeah, and then look, you got. I love the fact that no one would imagine him walking in because of the real world kind of beef between Ryan Reynolds and Wesley Snipes from way back when they were both, you know, in Blade Trinity. And he was playing Hannibal King, and Wesley Snipes was playing Blade. I just thought that was another great way to bring him back. I maybe they did it and I missed it, but if they didn't, they should have done a reference to that, to the fact that they had met before or something. You know, like, oh, you look familiar. You know.
Yeah, they didn't. The joke with them was like, there'll never be another Blade. And he's just like, oh boy.
Yeah.
He's going to tell this guy.
Yeah. But then they bring in Gambit, Channing Tatum's Gambit, which we've discussed at length already. And it was good. Just the way that they played him, not only for laughs, but also made him a badass when it came to fighting, was awesome. And of course his outfit looked ridiculous because it would in the real world. That is one of the outfits, like some of these outfits you can make it work, right? You can make it work in the real world. Captain America actually worked pretty well. Wolverine's suit even looked kind of cool. It looked tactical, you know. Deadpool's suit, it works. But Gambit's like very vibrant, kind of purple, pink with the trench coat over. Like it looked silly, and it was awesome at the same time.
Yeah, it was really comic. I mean, because you can't do it any other way but comic book accurate, you know. And that was, and again, I think it was just the show. Like, hey, this wouldn't have worked.
Yeah,
you know, even Captain America's costume in the very first Captain America, it was kind of like he got his costume as a joke.
Yeah.
You know, like they made him dress up for, you know, USO shows, and he kept it, but it was really a joke, you know. So it was like, it was a good way to bring that into it as well.
Yeah, and then eventually they do with Captain America. They kind of make it more tactical looking when they bring him into the 21st century. And then it kind of works, and it like grows on the fans in that way. It's like they bring it in as a joke, they improve upon it, they make it tactical, and it was awesome. So then we also get Jennifer Garner's Elektra, which
who looked better than she's ever done. I got to be honest.
Yeah, I think she definitely redeemed herself in terms of like just being a badass in this movie, and you could take her seriously. Like she kicked ass when they went and fought Cassandra Nova's goons outside of her Ant-Man body. It was awesome. That's such a great, you know, I'll be honest, I tire of some of these big ending scenes in a lot of these movies because they're so it's just overdone. Like the final battle, you know, you know to expect it, you know how it's going to go. This is one of my favorite ones I've seen in a long time. Like I usually kind of check out, I'll be honest, when it comes to, with the exception of like Endgame, Infinity War, those big movies, but solo character films, when it gets to fighting the big bad at the end, I kind of tune out. I'm not going to lie. I'm like, it's the same as it always is, but having them all go in as a team and just, they were fighting all at the same time. Like you couldn't really tell like who was doing what if you were just looking at the big picture. They were all fighting.
Right.
You have to kind of zoom in on each one to see what's going on.
She was phenomenal in that scene. She was amazing in it. You know?
Yes. So another big reveal is her coming in, and I guess some people knew this ahead of time. I didn't know she was going to be in the film until the trailer reveal.
Yeah, they didn't need that, to be honest with you. I think the movie was already sold. You didn't need that part of the trailer. But yeah, she was amazing in it. Phenomenal. She was
awesome. And I'm so glad that they brought the original actress back to play her as an adult. Like, and they could totally keep her around going forward and continuing the X-23 story. I think that would be awesome. I think that would be so cool, not only for the character in the films, but like for that actress to actually get to do something with that character where she probably thought she'd never get to play that character ever again. And it could end up being a legacy character for her, like Hugh Jackman, you know? Right.
I agree. I think, and in the comic book too, which I read some of her stuff. She's got really good stories. There's really good stories with her, Wolverine, and Deadpool as well. I've read some of those really good stories. There's one where I think there's a plague that's killing everybody. The three of them have to get together and they mix their blood because they have healing factors, and they come up with the antidote. Because it's a really good story.
That's cool.
Yeah, it's a really good story. So there's a lot of great stuff for her, which they could easily do. You know.
Yeah, I remember when she first kind of came onto the scene, and I was like very hesitant. I thought like, they always overdo Wolverine for one. Like there might be 3 or 4 different Wolverine-centric books going on at the same time. Like it was just flooding the comic book world. And then to go, oh, now we got a female Wolverine. It felt like the same old crap, right? But they really did something really good with that character. Like it's if anybody has any doubt of whether a female Wolverine would work, you know, go read some of those stories with Laura. It'll change your mind. Like she's a badass character with some great stories.
Oh yeah, without a doubt. Yeah, great stories in there.
So obviously we get they figure out that they can use Juggernaut's helmet if they can get it off of him to block Cassandra Nova's powers, and that's how they're going to defeat her. They end up doing just that. But actually they don't defeat her because of the helmet. Actually they kind of play mind games with her. Logan actually gets, you know, he takes the helmet off of her and you know, kind of convinces her.
Plays on her conscience.
Yes, and it actually works.
Plays on her
like
conscience.
that.
Yeah. Gives her the opportunity to do the right thing, and she does it.
Yes. Then we get to obviously all the characters get their kind of final moment there, battling at the end, and then Deadpool and Wolverine get their way out with the Doctor Strange ring that happened to be there, which was pretty cool. Of course, it would be. There'd be one of those in the void, right? It worked because there's all these remnants from different universes there, so that totally worked for me that would be there. Using a little more MCU universe magic, I thought was pretty cool.
There is a mention of Doctor Strange in one of the old, I think it's one of the Spider-Man movies. They mentioned Doctor Strange in it. In the Andrew Garfield one, I believe, and I could be wrong. So one of your listeners can put that in the comments. But I think Jane, no, it's not. It is. I think it's Tobey Maguire. J. Jonah Jameson is having this thing. Everybody's got to have a name now. We have Spider-Man. We have Doctor Strange.
Oh yeah.
So technically that's Doctor Strange in the Fox. So maybe you know what I mean. So there is a mention of him.
Yeah, and also just how many with the What If show, we've seen how many different versions of just this MCU like there is. Like there's a bunch of unlimited Doctor Strange. I mean, even with the Multiverse of Madness, we saw all those different versions of Doctor Strange. So fully believable that ring would be there. So that's their way out. They get out of the void, and then they're going to go stop old Polygamy or whatever his name is. They go back to the TVA, and that they're going to expose him before he uses this big device he has, the MacGuffin. I love how immediately Deadpool like hello MacGuffin when they see the thing, right? Like this device that it's like a world ender, right? Like that's what he's going to use to shut the universe down immediately rather than waiting for it to die out. And so Wade is fighting to save his people, his universe, the only people in the world who mean anything to him or care about him, because obviously he's kind of worthless to the rest of the world, he's found out. But there's this core group of people that he loves, so he wants to save this universe. They end up pulling it off at the end. Not only it was going to be a self-sacrifice. It was kind of like Hawkeye and Black Widow, where they got to choose who's going to sacrifice themselves to save the day.
There was a few of those moments, right? There was the Hawkeye Black Widow moment, and then there was the Guardians of the Galaxy moment. Yeah, I think with the joining hands and stuff like that. Which was really cool. Yeah.
So they did that. One of them went to sacrifice himself, and the other was like, "Nope, it's going to be me." And then they end up both actually kind of probably believing that they were going to have to sacrifice both of themselves. But because of the strength of both of them, they didn't have to stop Cassandra Nova from what was she going to do? End all? She was trying to end all the universes?
All the universes, so they would end up down in the void, and then where she would be the god of the void.
Yeah. Pretty cool plot, really. That's so they end up joining together to be able to stop this device and short circuit it. And
right after they fought the army of Deadpools.
Oh yes, how do we not mention the army? The Deadpool Corps shows up in this, which was fantastic. There was Kidpool, and obviously earlier in the film we saw too Nice Pool, which was just Ryan Reynolds with
funny. So funny. That whole interaction with him during the gunfight was just hilarious. Over the top. It almost reminded me like of the old Naked Gun movies.
It was silly.
Remarkably funny. And then like the cameos of Deadpool. Like I don't know if you know, but Tom Holland, his brother played one of the Deadpools.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, he played one of the Deadpools. And when they had the Welsh Deadpool, which is from their TV show, because they bought that stadium. One of the soccer players was Welsh Deadpool. It was great. Like the cowboy pool and like, of course, Lady Deadpool, played by his wife, was just hilarious. Yeah,
I thought that was cool to have her play. And he even another like breaking the fourth wall moment in the movie. He mentions his wife. Like I think it's like something where. Logan does something to touch him or something. I don't know. And he said, I'm telling Blake.
I predict this
which
year,
I thought
actually,
was.
this is the first time I've said this. I predict this year, females, they like to dress up for Halloween. I think it's going to be a bunch of lady Deadpools.
Oh,
Just in leather
yeah.
suits everywhere. That's what we're going to see every Halloween party. Every subway you
I'm
get on. It's like
I will not fight against that.
no, I'm here
That's
for
fine
it.
by me.
I'm here for
Yeah.
it.
But in the end, basically, the TVA find out about this kind of black ops program going in within their in their organization, and they shut it down. And the Deadpool convinces the TVA to not only say let his universe live on, but also to bring some people back from the void. So they end up saving Gambit and Lara and Blade, and like I thought that was fantastic, because that brings them now into the MCU as well, if they ever want to use them for anything.
Right. Yeah, it really does. It leaves the door open for, again, in the end, there's no walls anymore, right? There's no, I mean, you have, since Fox, you have Ghost Rider now. There's like, you have all the Venoms that they can go in there. You have Morbius if you want. You have even Madam Web, yuck. You have, Kraven the Hunter when it comes out. There's a lot. Punisher, whichever version of the Punisher you want. There's just there's no limits to what you can do with it now. It's all open for just spin-off TV shows if done right. You know what I mean? Like just miniseries, rated R. It's been proven it works. It's been proven that it can work. There's just so much to go on now.
That's one thing I hope they'll take from this, Disney. This doesn't have to be a one-off. I know it was kind of an experiment for them. But I don't see how they don't at least have like a kind of a Marvel dark, a darker side where they will be able to do some more adult themed films and mix those in a little bit with the PG-13 ones. Because yes, the PG-13 ones still have potential to make more than a rated R film, because you can take all the kids to it, right? But this proves that they can make a shit ton of money with a rated R film.
I mean, the new Blade is not going to be rated R. I mean, all the Blades were rated R, and they were necessary. They were necessary because the vampires were vicious. They were at nightclubs. There was just sacrifices. There was so much blood, so much, and it's always weird when you live in that world of violence that you're not going to drop an F-bomb. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like it's, you're hacking people. It's like, no, I would never say an F-bomb.
Yeah, it's a prerequisite in a world like that.
Let's be honest.
So I've kind of got a final question for you before we wrap this thing up. But is the MCU back?
I hope so. It has everything. It has a foundation for a new beginning, if you will. Right now, you can kind of get a clean slate. You have movies that, even though I didn't really like stuff like the 10 Rings, not that I didn't like the story and like the action. I didn't like, what's her name, Aquafina. I think when they all, like, every movie has that one character that brings in the comedic, and she just wasn't it. But that to me wasn't a failure, but I thought it was a good movie. I think there's a chance we can forgive them if they've learned from their, like, no more She-Hulks. People are already bitching about people are bitching now about the new Red Hulk.
Really?
I've seen it online, but it's like, listen, he shows up for a second. We don't know what they're going to do with it. People are upset what they did to the old Hulk. What they did to Thor. But there's a whole new director behind Thor now that's not going to make him silly, because he went a little bit too silly. Like Thor went way to the point where in the first Thor, he's not an idiot, right? He's a god. And he looks like it. Like, I could go into a mechanic shop and look like a moron because I don't know what's going on in the shop because I'm not a mechanic. But in the real world, I like to think I'm not a moron, right? So when Thor came to Earth, it's like, well, you're kind of a bit of a moron because you just don't understand our ways. But then they kept leaning into the fact that, like, he became Joey from Friends, basically.
He did. Yeah.
Right. So I think if they can kind of pull him back, because he's one of the biggest, which I think they're going to, because the new director said he's not going to make him a silly, because he's not even close to silly in the comic books at all.
No.
The only time he kind of comes across silly is when people laugh at his, I shall destroy, people are like, yeah, that's not how we talk here. So I think if they maybe make Hulk a little bit more badass, like bring him back to the Ed Norton Hulk, which still belongs to that universe. That would have been a good one to bring back. Maybe just that Hulk defeats the other one. Now we're stuck with that Ed Norton Hulk, which would be a cool.
If they got Wesley Snipes and Ryan Reynolds, together again, like, come on, we can't get Edward Norton to show up for a minute. I know he has like serious. They don't like each other. Like Kevin Feige and the MCU do not like Edward Norton. Edward Norton doesn't like. But same thing was true with Wesley Snipes. So never say never, man. When Marvel pulls up with that dump truck full of money, they can pretty much make anything happen, dude.
People didn't like how Rhodey. They ended up Rhodey in that in Invasion, right? How they ended Rhodey. But you know what? Now we have an open universe. You can grab the other guy, the original guy, which I know he was difficult to work with. But you know what? Like you said, dump that truck in his driveway. He'll be on his best behavior.
Yeah. For 1 minute, hey, here's $5 million to do 1 minute on screen for this huge movie.
Man, said it too. And best about he said it like, all right, can we stop with the multiverse thing now? Like, because it's getting out of control. So I really think they can redeem themselves for the last few years of bad movies. Stop listening to agendas. Stop listening to what people think they want to hear. Like, it's not a good time for Disney. Like, I don't know if you saw the vice president. I don't know if you saw that video that came out about him. He's been interviewed on a date, and he said, "Yeah, we're just not hiring white guys." He just said, we don't hire, right?" And like, he didn't even hire a black guy because he wasn't black enough. Like, knock that shit off, right? And let's just tell good stories without any other factor whatsoever. If you have a quota to fill, like, we got to put so many women, I'm all for that. If you got to put X amount of speaking parts for this, then that's fine too. But just tell a good story, and just that's all you need to focus on. That's all you need to focus on.
100%, and they've proved it time and time again when they've just done that. When they've just told good stories and made like these films that people cared about these characters, all the money came in. And when they stopped doing that, the money started to peter out.
Not only did people not go to the movies, they cancel subscriptions. Like, it's just it's not smart. It wasn't smart.
I went to see, the last few MCU films I went to see in the theater was nothing like Deadpool and Wolverine. Like, there was a couple people in there like that. The showings, it just, people were not showing up for it in the same way. Ant-Man and the Wasp, there was like, there might have been 10 people in the theater. Like, that's nothing, man. Like, so this was definitely a return to form, and I hope that they continue going. I personally think that Captain America: Brave New World looks fantastic. I hope that it turns out to be as good as it looks.
It does. It looks like a good spy movie, like, more than anything, right? It does, because there's not that much superhero stuff going on there, because he has no powers in the slightest, right? He has a cool suit that maneuvers everything, so it looks like a good spy movie. And I think it's got a good cast. It's got a really, like, Harrison Ford is in it. That's really cool. And I don't know, man. I think it could be something. I'm not really excited. I'll go see it, of course, but I'm not really that excited about it just yet, because just the character in general doesn't excite me. Like, he never, he's a good guy to have in the movies, but I never looked at him as a lead. Like, even when he was in him and the Winter Soldier, they were both kind of carried that show together. But I don't know if he could carry it by himself. But I'll definitely go see it. I'll support it.
That's true. That's true. And the Captain America trilogy is probably my favorite of the MCU in terms of trilogy. Well, maybe Deadpool now, that if you consider that MCU.
It has to be.
But you're
the
right.
Russo brothers are back now too, you know, and I mean,
I know.
they don't miss. They don't miss.
Yeah, I'm very happy about that. But yeah, the Captain America. You're right about Captain America because Winter Soldier was kind of a buddy cop. You know, it was a two character thing, and then you had Civil War, which was like an ensemble. It was basically another Avengers movie.
Right.
So you're right. The character alone maybe isn't as good as the character with an ensemble. So it remains to be seen. But I have a feeling we also might get some other characters showing up in that film. So hopefully it works out. I'm very hopeful now though after seeing this film.
Right. Again, if they stop messing with they turned Abomination into, I hate saying it, I feel like an idiot saying it, but they turned him into an abomination, like what they did with that character. This vicious, you know, and then you had like what they did with the Hulk. Like if they go back to what they did that worked the first time around, it worked for a reason. You know, it worked for a reason, and it's get people involved who know the character, because if the comic book sold well, and you tell that story again, you know, like you could watch a movie, a good superhero movie, and you could watch, like, even with the Doc Ock in Spider-Man 2, you know, when he would disappear over the building, and it was like, you look at the comic, it was drawn the same. And so people that know what they're doing is what really make these movies. Like someone who are, I think, legit fans are the ones who are writers and creators are the ones that are going, and not the Star Wars debacle, like where the writers said they'd never seen Star Wars movies.
That's crazy.
It's like that's up to you, man. Like it's your money, but you've lost it all crazy. Now. Like you've killed Star Wars because you've hired a bunch of people that know nothing about Star Wars. Yeah, you know, and that's if MCU stays away from that, I think they'll be fine. Yeah,
I think that's the move. You have to hire fans. You have to. That's the way to do it. And then also maybe bring in some of the original creators. That's another way to get the story told right.
At least consult these people, the people over at Marvel, the guys who dreamed about doing this from a kid, and they've read every single last comic book. You know, like I went for a writer's job with WWE years ago, and I was talked out of it. I was very close to working with WWE as a writer, and a friend of mine, who's a good friend of mine to this day, talked me out of it based on how they treat their staff there, and he convinced me to not go. But when you were talking to them, you had to have 30 years of knowledge of wrestling before you could write a storyline. You couldn't just walk in, I'm this new hot shot kid, I'm gonna turn this company around, here's my ideas. If you didn't know anything about the history, you weren't getting a laptop to type anything, you know. And that company, I don't watch wrestling anymore, I haven't watched it in years. That's still one of the most successful companies around today.
Well, along wrestling, pro wrestling, much like the comic book industry, especially these ongoing titles, it's a soap opera. It's an ongoing, decades long soap opera that's playing out, and I think you should have some deep knowledge
100%.
Going into writing the stories. But I'm going to wrap this thing up, Mick. I'm going to let you go. I think I've kept you longer than I said I would anyway, but thank you so much for I appreciate you hanging out and talking Deadpool and Wolverine, man. Just such a great movie. Yeah. And then, you're going to see it a third time. I'm going to see it a second time. It's a good time to be a Marvel fan.
It might be I might end like Endgame. I saw it 5 times in the theater. A lot of that was because I'm on the road a lot and I'm bored in a small town. Like, let me go again. I might go see this fight. I might beat this actually. I don't know. It's I might do it. I don't know.
That's awesome. I love hearing that because that gives me hope too. It's like I'm gonna have the passion to keep podcasting about this stuff. It's like
that's great, man. It's a great show. I'm a big fan of this show.
Yeah. Thank you very much. But yeah, anytime you want to come back, Mick, and talk Marvel or anything else, man, you want to come on one of my other shows and just shoot the shit, I would love to talk to you. I love hanging out.
I'll show up and do a live one with you one day.
Awesome. Thank you, man. Have a good one. you know, where are you going tonight, this weekend?
Oh, this weekend I have a lot of just stuff in the city, you know, trying out new material. So if you want to go see me bomb, I'm all over the place in New York City. But next week I'm at Minnesota Irish Festival for the Friday and the Saturday, and then August 26th all the way to September 1st. I got 9 shows in Myrtle Beach at the Comedy Cabana.
Awesome. Everybody go check out his podcast, Cheaper Than Therapy. It's a fantastic show. He puts out an episode every week. I listen to it religiously. Great show. So thanks again, Mick, and I'll talk to you again soon, man.
Thanks, man. Have a good one.
All right, later.
Bye-bye.
Okay.